While many institutions have since moved to improve their support structures for survivors of sexual violence, this has likely varied amongst institutions. It's incredible to see the emergence of more ground-up initiatives, including safe spaces and support groups for victims of sexual assault. Could the Minister for Social and Family Development share on current work done by the Ministry and the other government agencies to offer robust and accessible survivor support in the medium to long term, including but not limited to psychologists, therapists, and support group linkages? In my line of work, I've accompanied people to police stations to make reports on sexual violence. It's incredibly difficult for survivors to feel comfortable about making a report in the first place. But sometimes the responses from those called to protect us can be disheartening. 3 years ago, I accompanied a 25-year-old survivor to make a police report against a rape that was committed against her. She came out crying. The police officer had allegedly made comments about her dressing and the fact that she was drinking. We need better treatment of survivors of sexual assault and sexual harassment by law enforcement. In recent years, we have seen training rolled out for judges and regulations for how lawyers argue sexual assault cases, all steps in the right direction to prevent re-victimization. I would like to call on the Ministry of Home Affairs to provide more police officers with specific sexual violence training to handle sexual assault and harassment cases with sensitivity and care towards victims during the reporting and investigation process. Survivor-centered care is a crucial step in addressing sexual violence, and our police officers can also be supported by counselors or trained mental health personnel at police stations other than the One Safe Center in Police Cantonment Complex. Assuring survivors that they can be taken seriously and not blamed for the horrors that they have faced is an important step of making our law enforcement system more just. This will help build confidence in the sensitivity and capacity of law enforcement to handle difficult issues delicately and will encourage more victims of sexual violence to come forward. While I acknowledge that providing more victim support and increased reporting will require more resources on the part of law enforcement, I believe that this is something we must commit to. No victim should ever feel like those with the power to safeguard them have disregarded their needs.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, for me to make a clarification to Member Raeesah Khan, who made a reference during her speech about a mishandling case of the police of an investigation involving a sexual victim. I would like to seek some clarification from her in terms of the details, because we take this very seriously. Any form of questions raised about how the police have handled or mishandled this case should be investigated. I would like to request for her to provide us more details so that we can investigate this issue. Secondly, we also noticed that she has raised quite a few questions just now about information as well as suggestion about how this case has to be handled, and to also, even through this one incident, suggested that the police have to improve their training. So for such questions, we would like to request that she can give us specific details and even parliamentary questions so that this can be looked into and we can give her a proper answer for these questions. Thank you.
Thank you for those clarifications. Like I mentioned, it was 3 years ago, and I do not wish to re-traumatize the person that I accompanied. But I have to say that these anecdotes are not isolated, and perhaps this can start further discussions on how victims or survivors are treated after they make reports. And this may not just be in when they make reports to the police, but it can also be how they make reports to other institutions. And on your sorry, what was your second point?
Requested that if you have specific questions or request for information, you file a proper parliamentary question so that we can provide the data to you properly.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, I would also like to say that, you have made a very serious allegation of the mishandling of police in the House through your speech. And we take this seriously. We like to have the details so that we can look into it and not just have this swept. I know that it's not going to be easy for you or even for your victim to go through this, but from the police point of view, you have just made a very important allegations, and we would like to have the details to look into it further.
My speech earlier should not be construed as casting aspersions on the police. That was not my intention and should not be interpreted as such. The police is part of the solution and not the problem. I raised the example because it was my experience with a survivor. The episode I raised in my speech took place 3 years ago, and I've been unsuccessful in getting in touch with them. I believe that given the topic at hand, consent is imperative, not least to avoid re-victimization. I will communicate directly with MHA on any episode in the future where a survivor believes she has been processed inappropriately by the police, even as I will try my best to maintain my relationship of confidentiality with the victim.
I thank the member for clarification. I just wanted to take this opportunity to remind all members of the House that the law confers on members of Parliament privilege in the House and immunity, which means that it must be exercised responsibly. And I just wanted to remind members of the House that when assertions and allegations are made, members must be prepared to substantiate them. This is just a reminder to members so that they, in future, they will understand if you make an assertion, you may be called upon to substantiate it, especially if an assertion is made against an agency which is not in a position to defend itself.